Call the meeting to order. It's now 10:30. Before we get started, I'd like everyone to stand for our pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. As we normally do, I'd like to request a moment of silence for our recently departed residents and friends and neighbors, as well as those suffering around the world. Moment of silence, please. Thank you all. Okay, we will now do our roll call.
Michael Messina,
Present.
Ed Whitman,
Present.
Mary Adler,
Excused absence.
Carol Butterworth, Charlie Rock.
Present. Okay. Can I please have a motion from a board member for the approval of the January 16, 2025 open board meeting minutes?
I vote to accept the minutes of January 16th, 2025.
Okay, may I please have a second?
Second the motion.
Thank you. All those board members in favor of approving the minutes from January 16, 2025, please state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed state nay. The ayes have it. The motion for the approval of the minutes is passed. Well, we were supposed to have a guest speaker, and they did not hear, so we're going to skip that section of it. If he happens to show up a little bit later, we'll work him into the meeting, okay? The next thing that we normally do is we have motions. Motions are to document appropriately at an open board meeting things that happen. Most of the time, motions are done with a threshold of money. And the number right now is like $15,000, which will probably be upgraded with the cost of living. But there's we have actually 3 motions today, and not all of them deal with money, which is a good thing. All right, so we have 3 motions. The first motion is for, I'd like to give an explanation, right? So we're sitting at a meeting with the Finance Committee, the board is there, and we're discussing some residents occasionally have late fees on paying their HOA fees. It happens. It fell behind the desk, whatever happens. So I asked the question, I said, what's the rule for a resident who makes a late fee? And asking around to finance and the board, it's really not a rule. Once one person said, you're allowed one per your life. I said, if you live really long here, it'd be 1 in 30 years. Not necessarily making too much sense. And somebody said, well, 1 every 2 years. But there was no rule. So this first motion, the purpose of the motion, is to memorialize a process, a rule for late fees. Now, we don't have a problem with late fees, but you have to treat everyone the same. So there should be some type of guideline. So, the first motion is for the standardization of what I just stated for our residents. And then it's come to mind that, we really didn't have one. The new standard for late fees will be a waiver of the late fee for any resident one time in a rolling 3-year period. Now, why did we say 3? 3 times 4 is 12. So in 12 payments, if you're late one time, it will be excused in a 3-year period. Now, it should not just be the board. So we made a new committee with finance. So the finance committee, along with the board, will handle these late fees on kind of an individual basis, but if you're 1 every 3 years, it just gets approved, it's okay. But then the circumstance came up. Someone was excused one time, and that person had the misfortune that their spouse passed away. And they weren't home for 3 months. now they got a late fee. So the board, and along with finance, for a situation like that, or a case-by-case situation, will look at it and go, does this make sense? And obviously it doesn't. They just lost their spouse. So the rule is one for a 3-year period or one for 12 payments, but there might be an exception with a really good reason that will not be handled by one board member or just the board. Finance will be involved. So what we're looking for is a motion documenting that we have now a rule that says one late fee every 3 years is okay, and you don't have to pay it. And then there'll be extenuating circumstances that will be reviewed by the committee. So I would ask, may I please have a motion from a board member for adopting this new standard of practice in regard to residents having late HOA payments? May I have a motion for that?
I so move.
All right, may I please have a second for this?
I second it.
All those board members in favor of this motion state aye. Aye. Those opposed state nay. The ayes have it, and the motion for the renewal of this process for late fees is now passed. Oh, we have our speaker here? Yes. Okay, we're gonna go back. Okay. All right, I was gonna say before we start the motion, but we're not. Okay, so today we have a guest. And our guest is the Vice President of the Toms River Policemen's Benevolent Association. The gentleman is Mr. Anthony Pachuli. I'd like to invite Anthony up here, and he's going to have the floor for a few minutes. Come on up, you can have the podium.
Sure. Okay. Hi, folks. How are you? Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. As you said, I'm with the Toms River Police Department, Vice President of the PBA 137. So I took on the role about 1.5 years ago. I noticed that there was a little bit of a miss in communication with some of the communities throughout our town. I think I just want to give you folks the opportunity to have a voice, with us, growing concerns within the community about frauds, first aids type situations, medical alarms. Please, I'm here. I just want to make myself known. Probably step in the president role in the next couple months. So again, I just want to let you know who I am. Try to be as much help as I possibly can. I'll give you a contact number for me, and if you have any questions for me, please ask them, and I'll try to address them if I can here. And if I can't address them specifically here, I'll get somebody back in the department to address them. All right? So I'm here. Please go through with your meeting, and then afterwards, if you have questions, or if you have questions during your meeting, I'll address them as they come up. All right, thank you again for having me.
Okay, so I said that we had 3 motions. So the second motion, the ARC standards have been reviewed, and essentially the recommendations from the committee, along with Phil, have come forward to the board, and the board has approved them. So this motion is for the acceptance of the new ARC standards that will go into play very soon, effective almost immediately. Okay, so I would like to make a motion, have someone make a motion to accept the new ARC standards that have been reviewed by the board and approved. We have to do it in open forum. Will someone please make a motion to accept the new ARC standards?
I so move.
Okay, may I please have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those board members in agreement with this motion, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, state nay. The ayes have it, and the documentation, the approval for the new ARC standards is now formalized. And you'll get more specifics. Ed, I think Ed's going to tell you about when they're available and stuff like that. Nothing dramatically different, but you really need to formalize the process. And again, this is an opportunity to review and update. You know, we've already done one layer, the governing documents, and, you know, we're moving on to try to hit each area to update as necessary. It should be done every few years. And I thank the Art Committee and Phil for their work on this. Okay. And Phil just clapped for himself. Yes. Okay. Huh? All right, so we have the third motion. Now, I had mentioned there's normally a $1 threshold, but in this case, we're memorializing the acceptance of something. So, normally, when you have a dollar amount, I said it was $15,000. And today, this second motion is for $5,000 something dollars. But it's important to hear this because recently it's come to our attention that there is a concern. So, the board is proposing that we memorialize a new preventive maintenance process for our retention/detention basin. Now, we have 7 basins throughout the community. Occasionally, they fill with water, and then they become a retention one. Or detention means that it's transient, and retention means it stays. They're not meant to be filled with water. That's what it really comes down to, okay? So when you see them filled with water, that's something's not working properly. Now, I'll use the example, the Whitesville Gate, a lot of people go out that way, right? And then you see a big puddle, and the big tree that's out there is covered. So there really was not a preventive maintenance schedule for these 7 basins. They normally, the last time that they were dealt with was when we paved the roadways. And we paved the roadways, and for some reason, then the detention basins, as they got close to them, were dealt with. And then forgotten. So we are going to have, the board is proposing a preventive maintenance schedule to deal with the retention basins so that they don't fill with water and the water stays. So this starting point, and we normally don't try to do everything all at once because it's cost prohibitive. So the retention basin between Torrington Drive and Lake Ridge Boulevard, we are looking for an approval through motion to start this preventive maintenance schedule. And just so you have a little frame of mind here, so it was $5,500 in order to deal with that retention basin, which eroded out, was blocked, had weeds growing in all those stones, and we needed to take care of that. So may I please have a motion for adopting this preventive maintenance plan for our basins, starting with the basin between Torrington Drive and Lake Ridge Boulevard. May I have a motion?
I so move.
And I need a second for this motion.
I second.
Okay, then those board members in favor of this motion state aye. Opposed state nay. The ayes have it, and the motion for the renewal for this new preventive maintenance schedule for our retention basins is now passed. Okay, that's it for motions. Okay, now I'll continue on with the President's report. Now I'd like to start off my report with using a 4-letter word. Snow. Last year we had a similar circumstance, and recently we had, I'd like to take an opportunity to give everyone all the facts in regard to the last snow event. And thank God we didn't have another one, and we're not going to have one. So now they're saying we're going to get just a dusting. So we're all aware of the general 3-inch rule, and we plow. Clearly, areas in Lake Ridge got more than 3 inches, or 4 inches. By the way, this measurement is not to be done on a surface like a mailbox or your patio table. It's supposed to be done on the roadways. What most people are unaware of is there's a second part to the general rule, which is with township approval. On the day in question, I received a phone call at 3:12 a.m. from our contractor who was on site asking me, what are we to do? And I said to myself, I was really hoping there was 5 or 6 inches down and we really didn't have a decision here. Take care of it. But no, as it turns out, the township once again said, we didn't necessarily get enough snow to plow, and they were not planning on plowing. And we said, really? So, I'm gonna pat myself on the back a little bit. I get up out of my bed because you can't make a decision what to do in your bed. Got dressed, shoveled my driveway, and drove around the community for the next 2 hours. And made sure, see, what am I talking about here? What are we supposed to do? And I'm driving on the main roads, and I'm telling you, and I consider myself a decent driver, I didn't know where the roads began or ended. But when I'm on a side street, there's mailboxes. I can tell where the road began and ended. So now I go around and I hit almost every street. I go back to the contractor, now that's 30, 40 minutes later, whatever. And I said, what is the weather forecast? And I get on my phone and I'm looking it up, and it's supposed to rain, and the temperature's supposed to go up, and the next day it's supposed to be 50 degrees. I'm like, okay. So a decision had to be made at that point, and I want to be perfectly clear about this. I did not wake up another board member, okay? I made the decision myself. To wake somebody else up at 4 o'clock in the morning, it feels crazy. Anyway, so I made the decision to plow the main arteries. I went to each exit, made sure they were plowed. We had a problem at Whitesville, another story. And that's what we did. And we plowed. And we left the streets alone. And we did not pull the snow from a driveway into the street that we didn't plow. And I'm thinking to myself, I hope this is right. But if it's not right, at 10 o'clock in the morning, we'll go plow the side roads. But for right now, because I know the expense of plowing this development, and if I tell you to plow the development costs $10,000, which the township said they're not going to reimburse us, and it's going to rain, and we do the main roads, and we do the entrances, that's my stopgap decision, and let's play it by ear. And as it turned out, by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, things cleared up considerably, and the next day it's gone. So I know a lot of people went on Facebook, and they think, why didn't this happen? How come this didn't happen and such? The problem is, you don't necessarily have all the information from the keyboard, as I did in the street, driving around. And yes, a decision has to be made. And to be honest, I don't want to make that decision, but somebody makes the decision. So that's the snow story. There's going to be people that like that decision. They're going to say, wow, that was very cost effective, it worked out. There's going to be people that don't like it. But that's the whole story, that's all the facts. So looking back, maybe it was the right decision. I still think it is. So it really comes down to, first, the township giving approval. And then, if they don't give approval, making as best a decision in terms of safety and cost, and then factor in the weather. God bless us. How do you do that? So we will handle individual questions about that event when we're done during the question and answer period. Okay, the only other thing that I'd like to include in my report, and I'm looking out at a specific, at a conversation with a specific resident. I don't know if you realize, but every May there are elections for board positions. This year, come May, there are 3 positions. 3. These 3 individuals are done with their 2-year term. And they may run, they may not run. But this is an opportunity for residents who want to get involved to be on the board, to throw their hat in the ring. Now, in the last 3 years, only one resident who was not a board member at the time volunteered to be on the board. That was Carol. 3 years, one person volunteered, that was Carol. So it would be nice if other people who want to get involved and be part of the process at least apply. And then the following year, there will be 2 more positions, mine and Mary Adler, who will be up for election. And that's how it works. It's normally 3 one year, 2 the other. It sort of rotates around. So this very wise resident told me, well, tell people about it, and then tell them what to expect. So I'm gonna say anyone interested should expect to be volunteering between 10 to 12 hours per month minimally. And that's for the various meetings that have to happen, with the majority of the hours being during daytime hours. So if you're working during the day, this may not be for you. And in addition, any applicant should expect to be receiving numerous phone calls internally once in a while, but, so to be on the board, you're donating your time, you're a volunteer, and you should expect that it's gonna be X. So this is just to give you an idea of what X is. Now, I'm gonna tell you a lot of us put more time than that. God bless Mary Adler, because she's here every day, dealing with stuff. So her thing is probably more like, 40 hours in a month or 50 hours. But please consider, if you're interested. And I'll say this, even if the present board gets reelected, things change. You can be elected and then something happens and suddenly you drop out, and now someone who applied in the last election, we have your name, we know that you're interested. So even if this board gets totally reelected, at least we can identify people who are interested. And that's really it for my report. So I'd like to now turn the microphone over to our Vice President Ed for his report.
Good morning, and thank you for coming. First off, as a representative or liaison to the grounds committee, all of this stuff has to do with the grounds. The area around the gazebo, to the left and the right of the gazebo, has been being considered and working on. And Meticulous has put in proposals to revitalize that, and new walkways and new borders to freshen it up, make it look good. So that's going to be refurbished, and we're looking at that. The retention detention basins will be cleaned of the drains, starting with Torrington and the basin right behind the clubhouse here, which is entirely backed up. That hasn't been dealt with in years. It's a small basin, the smallest, but it's the worst. So we're going to do Torrington and then that. For the coming year, because last year was such a bummer last year, we had the drought, and we had a lot of weeds as a result of the drought because of the weed killer didn't take very much. Meticulous is planning ahead for that as well. And in the event that there's a similar pattern, weather pattern, they're going to put down an extra dose of weed control in the event of drought. So along with Meticulous, we are planning ahead in light of last year's experience so that we can perhaps do a little bit better this year with the lawns. There is, by the way, a new law, state law, that prohibits HOAs from doing anything on lawns between November 15th and March 1st. So during the winter, there won't be anything done on the lawns, which is reasonable. Winter lawns go dormant anyway. Another mark of progress is the 8 irrigation wells, which had been revitalized over the past several years, have now been complete. So all our wells have been renewed and brought up to speed. So our wells, irrigation wells are all working now. And lastly, our RoboCans. We're on schedule with that. The recyclings of the cans will be toward the end of this next month, the end of March. We'll get delivery on the cans, but then there's assembly of the cans. You get to put the axles on and the wheels on. So that'll take some time. Plus, there's some paperwork involved because each of those cans has to be registered to the address, to the house. So That will be accomplished at the end of the month, aiming at April 1st for the completion of the transit from the old garbage pails to the new robo cans and recycling cans. So that's the end of my report. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ed. And although Mary Adler has an excused absence, we have a treasurer report from Steve Agresta who will come up and give you that, okay?
Thank you, and good morning. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, good. All right, so these are the January 31st results. Just for a little bit of background how this works, we get the information from the management company around this time of the month for the prior month. So we just got, these are hot press numbers from yesterday. And what happens is we'll prepare the financials, and then the finance committee meets every month on the last Friday of the month to review the numbers and then go through and make sure everything is correct, or make any adjustments that we need to do, or look at trends that we want to, make sure you're on top of. So with that as the background, I'm going to go through the income statement, expenses, and the balance sheet. So for the 1 month ended January 31st, our net income of our net income of $10,715 was better by $12,687 than the budgeted loss of $1,972. So we basically had a good month. We were expected to lose money, we actually came out ahead. The factors are, in the income side, we were $16,000 better in income, 184 versus a budget, 184 budget versus actual of 200. The income was better due to the increased income from closing on home resales of 14,000, which was 11,000 better than budget. So we had 10 house resale closings where they pay the closing contribution versus 2 in the budget. And there was other areas that were also less than budget. Expenses were $4,000 worse than expected. So the budget was $186,000. Expenses were actually $189,000 or $190,000. They were over due to higher than budgeted snow removal and road treatment costs of $25,000, which created a $10,000 variance. So we have 15 in the budget, we spent 25 in January. And then there was some other areas that were under, so the net number was $4,000 worse than budget. In the balance sheet, our cash and invested funds were approximately $2.9 million, most of it in the replacement fund, which had a balance of about $2 million. The funds are held in CDs insured by the FDIC, U.S. Treasury notes, and in money market funds, and with some in cash for paying our bills. That's it.
Okay, so we'll now move on to the Secretary's report. Carol?
Thank you, Mike. Regarding the security, when you call the gatehouse, the guard has caller ID. Your profile. He then pulls up your profile on his computer and matches the phone numbers. Your profile has the names, address, directions if needed, and visitors for the day. You often hear him say, "I'll put him on the list." You have a list that states plumber, landscaper, healthcare person, etc. And later, when someone arrives to see you, he'll check your profile, sees that someone is expected, and he then types in the license plate number of the visitor. So that's how your security works at the gatehouse. As board liaison for the Documents and Policy Committee, we did the restrictive and protective covenants, and now we're working on the bylaws. I reported that the committee developed 14 questions regarding the bylaws and asked that the lawyers respond to these items when they review our bylaws. This was done last month, along with some recommendations to comply with current law. And then it went to the Board of Directors, which has approved the cost of preparing the revised bylaws. So the committee is quite busy updating and integrating, for a lot has happened since 2006. That's my report.
Thank you, Carol. We'll now have the Director at Large report from Jolie.
Good morning, everybody. I just want to start, as Mike has said, being on the board can be quite rewarding. However, I have found that I have increased my intake of Xanax, Tylenol, and a new friend in red wine. Only kidding. The Architectural Committee will be accepting paint applications as of March 15th. And as you heard, we voted on the updated ARC standards, which by this afternoon you can find on our website. You can pick up hard copies at the office, and you can look for copies being stuffed into the April views. Besides that, I just want to mention the gym committee. They request that you folks that use the gym, please realize that the recumbent bikes, we had 3, we're down to 2. They're not meant to be used as if you are in the French Grand Prix, pedaling for your life. They're not meant for cardio workouts or aerobic workouts. They're simply used, to be quite frank, they're in every physical therapy place in the country. They're used for rehab. They're not used to pedal like crazy. We have one broken. To replace it, it will cost us $3,500. They're trying to get some parts. And also with the 2 that are left, I have to say this. The other day, the co-chairman of the gym committee had given me a phone call, and she was quite upset. Again, there was someone, I have no idea who it was, but he was pedaling again like he was in a race. And when she tried to explain it to him, he was very nasty to her. Basically told her to F off. And she became very upset. And he also said, she said, if it breaks, we don't know if they're going to replace it. This gentleman, I use that term loosely, he had said, well, I don't give a damn. If they have to replace it, they replace it. Little does he know that it's his money to replace it. So please, the recumbent bike, if you really want a cardiac workout, get on the treadmills or get on the ellipticals. That's what they're meant for. Or the stationary bicycles, I'm sorry. One other note, if you will, the board puts aside the first Friday of the month to meet with any of our homeowners. We ask you to make an appointment. It's put in the books. More times than not, every board member will show up to meet with you one-on-one and to try to rehash and get through whatever you think is a problem, or to give you the proper information. We only ask that our time is valuable too. As Mike said, we spend a lot of hours in this clubhouse. And when we make that commitment, we sit at the table and we wait. And we wait. And we wait. Please, if you make an appointment, please show up. Because our time is just as important as yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. We will now move on to the manager's report from Ray.
Good morning, everyone. It's a little bit shorter this month, thankfully, but just to give you some highlights and catching up. We had the 2326 Ashfield Court, the HUD home had been an eyesore for a couple years now, but we finally got things cleaned up. The HUD maintenance department is only liable for the interior of the building. we were having trouble getting them to come out to maintain the exterior, so with the help of the attorney's office, we've had them contacted, and we had our contractors, specifically a Cut Above, and the power washing company come out and maintain the exterior of the house. We did do the power washing, bed maintenance. There was a dead tree there for some years. We had that removed and ground, and a new street tree planted, and as dictated by the attorney, these charges were charged back to the HUD department for that home. So it is, their account is in good order. The house is free of any current violations, so that we'll stop commenting on that going forward. Hopefully they'll keep up with the interior, and we'll get that house sold soon. As far as landscaping, Ed had mentioned about the detention basin at Torrington, and clearly Boulevard is being renovated. What we did look at, since this is the last year for the well maintenance, the irrigation maintenance, we have the final 2 wells and budgeted to be repaired this year. That'll take care of that obligation. We are going to schedule and plan the detention basins, retention basins for maintenance based on that schedule. Again, these charges were plugged into the budget ahead of time, so we knew that it was coming and adequately planned for the preventive maintenance. As far as retaining walls, I've talked about that the past couple of months. We were looking at getting one of the walls started as soon as possible based on the physical condition we could see at the wall itself. However, it was not adequately funded in reserves. We have since, with KipCon Engineering, upped that contribution to maintain the walls and repair the walls, specifically the one on Vicari and Crisfield. However, we would have to wait for winter time to do that as we take down the wooden ties. The ground has to be frozen so it can stay shored up. Put the blocks in there in the new construction, plus we'll be removing, although we don't know how that will be handled just yet, both the landscaping in the area for the walls. Last month I attended a briefing and met with another engineering company that actually has machinery that can do a seismic test on these walls. And I'm going to have a meeting with them on Tuesday. They can accurately tell you how much life is left in this wall, whether it's imminent collapse or it can last a year or two. If it can last a year or two, that'll help us in financing the maintenance. So we'll be looking at that and doing our due diligence as far as that project goes. Ed also mentioned the waste management contract expires, and we're working with Tom's River to take over the trash collection. We are looking for a March 17th delivery of the RoboCans. They'll be delivered, the plan is to have them delivered here because the township will have to reassemble these cans, and they'd be in the parking lot when they are delivered. It's estimated they'll take up about 7 parking spaces, at least till we can get them done. But again, this is all in plan. Again, we're looking at a March 17th, hopefully, delivery of the cans. Dumpsters will be ordered, and that's when we get the transition and the changeover schedule from the township. We'll get that out to everyone as well. We did approve, the board did approve the tennis court handrail to be installed as requested by the sports committee. However, we did have concerns about the shuffleboard court and the pool deck surface for repairs there. The repairs were quoted on a time and material basis, so we're having that company come out and do some test repairs on an area to see how much this will actually cost before we get into it. So that'll be in the plans before, during the spring here. Some other things that we've been doing, I think I mentioned it last month, that with the new insurance company, we've done commercial package, the building inspectors and the workers' compensation audits were completed. We are in compliance with the Federal Corporate Transparency Act, something that was established this year and has been back and forth in the courts, whether that it was actually legal to be done through the DCA or not. It's constantly being stayed or allowed to proceed. We just got an email Monday that we were allowed to proceed, but we were lucky enough to get our compliance done early. So whatever way the government takes with that, we'll be fine. And our association audit for 2024 is in progress with our accountant, Vulcan and Goodman Plan. And just to, I just want to see, the attorney is still working with Toms River Township about the arrears on the trash reimbursement from 2022 and 2023. They are sending out for a response. The original demand was sent out 30 days ago. A response is due almost immediately, but we're waiting to hear from the attorney on that. However, I just want to mention that we're trying to play nice with the township now too. We're working into this contract with the trash pickup. We did submit our end of year finances or reimbursement charges for lighting and trash, and that was paid in full, which was a first, and it was paid very early. So they're treating us nice. We're trying to treat them nice and not give them bumps in the road, but we want to make sure that we get what we're deserved here. And as everybody knows, there was a messages and blast going out earlier in the month about regarding the maintenance fees from Taylor Management, that the contractor, the lockbox company, did not receive any checks that were supposedly mailed out between December 27th and January 3rd. They were not received by the lockbox company. The bank did not receive them. It's still undetermined whether this was a lockbox problem or the mail service. We're still working that out. In fact, I have a call this afternoon with corporate to see if there's any updates on that. The email had asked people that if their check had not been processed, that it may be in their best interest to put a stop order on that check. Some people have, some people haven't. But the charges that are typically charged by Taylor Management for non-sufficient funds, for stop checks, for late fees, for any checks that were issued or not recorded within that time period, they would waive the fees. So we're still trying to figure out what's going on. There is a question about whether if you put the stop check out there as requested, you incur a $35 fee. That's something that Taylor had not mentioned when talking about the reimbursements. That the board, we had discussed with the finance committee the other day. We're getting like I said, I'll find out more this afternoon, but we are looking to handle that for the residents as well. And once we get all the answers on this, we'll get it out to everybody, and hopefully we don't run into this problem again at any time. So that concludes my report.
Okay, so fair amount going on, but from a finance perspective, it's only 1 month, but it's very positive. But there's a lot of things that go on in terms of keeping the HOA and this community looking the way it does, obviously. So, a lot of work. So at this point, I would now look for a motion to complete the business portion of this meeting. Someone make a motion. Thank you.
I make a motion to
May I
complete.
please, okay, may I please have a second and a business portion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all board members in agreement with ending the meeting state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The business portion of this meeting is now closed, and we're going to the question and answer period. So we have 2 microphones.